the Trump administration did take apart a lot of the regulations that would have, at least in theory, made sure that this kind of thing didn't happen.
So there's plenty of blame to go around on this, on these kind of, when these kind of things happen. But what's important is what we do moving forward, right? To take care of the people in these towns and communities.
The Republican commentator that you heard from in that CNN panel discussion is David Urban. And while what he said in that clip we showed you seemed pretty benign, fact of the matter is, they're talking about the train derailment in East Palestine, which of course had to do with a Norfolk Southern train. And CNN did not disclose that Mr. Urban was a prime lobbyist for Norfolk Southern, collecting quite a bit of money for the work he did on their behalf. A little bit of a conflict of interest, no? The audience deserves to know about the work he did for Norfolk Southern, no? Now, let's give you some more details. Urban was, until 2020, the president of the lobbying firm American Continental Group, where he lobbied for Norfolk Southern on transportation issues related to railways, starting in 2009, according to federal disclosure forms. He and his firm collected at least $1,140,000, according to a calculation of federal data by ProPublica. Now, Urban is the managing director for lobbying, a different lobbying firm, BGR Group. In its most recent lobbying quarter, BGR has continued to lobby on transportation issues. Its website also states, quote, "Our clients in the aviation, automotive, rail, shipping, and mass transit industries rely on BGR to educate potential leaders about how vital these industries are to domestic and international commerce." Again, these are details that, based on, I mean, it's journalism 101 in terms of like ethical standards. You disclose this to your audience if you must have the weirdo bald guy on your show to talk about these matters. And look, I know about David Urban because he was a Trump campaign advisor and a Trump lackey, and I debated him on CNN once, and so did Cenk. I didn't even know that he had this in his background, and CNN should have disclosed it.
So this is what they do on a regular basis. Getting a progressive on cable news is near impossible, but funny enough, that was an exception that proves the rule, because Nina Turner was on that segment. She's of course the host of On Boss on the TYT network, which you should check out. So, and in fact, earlier I'd given credit to CNN for having not a rare progressive, pretty much the only progressive on cable news anywhere. MSNBC doesn't have any, zero, none, right? But what they have is dozens of lobbyists pretending to be commentators and pundits, and they don't make their main money from CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. This applies to all the cable news, but in this case, it's clearly CNN. No, they make their money from lobbying. And so if you hire David Urban, I mean, I'm almost gonna do an ad for him here. He's gonna go on CNN and get to do propaganda for you on a national level, and they're never gonna tell anybody that it's a giant ad for your industry. And that's how this cycle of corruption works. Almost like half the people on television are lobbyists, and they never tell you.
It's insane. Look, guys, the reason why I referred to him as a weirdo bald guy is not because I'm trying to make fun of the way he looks. It's because who is David Urban, right? Like, it's one thing, I don't agree with it, but it's one thing when CNN ends up hiring some well-known public figure who has other conflicts of interest because they literally just served in the Trump administration, right? But they have a recognizable face and they think it's a big get to have that person work as a contributor. Who the hell is David Urban?
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
So he doesn't like, this is not right wing versus left wing.
No.
Dan Bongino unfortunately has a somewhat popular show now. So Fox News has him on, I get it. Okay, he's got a popular show. Laura Ingraham had a popular radio show, I get it. Okay, you're a politician, I hate it, but I get it. This guy is just a lobbyist.
Where did he come from? How did they find him? I don't understand, who pulled some strings to get this guy hired as a contributor? I don't get it.
But Anna, that's the thing. So these groups don't just lobby Congress, they also lobby media. So they make an enormous effort to get these lobbyists, sneak them on to cable. But is it really sneaking them on? Because look, the individual anchors oftentimes have no idea, right? But management knows, they hired them, right? And the management knows that half the people on air are just lobbyists. And so they're oftentimes lobbyists for people who are advertisers to them, right? And who are part of the Washington infrastructure. So it's not like they're so used to it. They're like the fish. When you ask the fish, how's the water? He goes, what water, right? So if you ask CNN, hey, isn't this corruption? They say, what corruption? Like, what do you mean? We have lobbyists all over our air doing secret ads for all of these industries.
In fact, just today, as I was watching CNN, as I was getting ready for work, I noticed that there was a BlackRock ad. And
of course.
So when we talk about private equity firms like BlackRock and how they have a tremendously negative impact on the housing market, there's a reason why those types of stories don't end up getting any airtime in media outlets like CNN. That's just a side note. I know you're chomping at the bit, but I do want to go to one more clip of Urban, knowing what we know now about his lobbying on behalf of Norfolk Southern. Let's watch.
When you saw those images, this is something that this administration seems to have not really grasped onto. You see the images of Afghanistan, people clinging to the wheels of the planes. Here you see this big black ominous cloud, something akin to Stranger Things episode, right? Looming over the poor people of Western Pennsylvania and southeastern Ohio. And the administration should have been there. They should have had their arms around people, saying, listen, we know this stinks. We know you don't trust companies, you don't trust the government. We're here to help you.
We've been critical of the Biden administration's response to the disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. However, we also were critical of Norfolk Southern and the lobbying they did to ensure that the industry remains deregulated, which leads to more of these train derailments, leads to more rail workers dying as a result. Of course, it increases their profits. That's the reason why they want the deregulation. But notice how Urban focused all of his negative attention on the Biden administration, no comment whatsoever in regard to Norfolk Southern and their efforts in keeping the industry deregulated.
Okay, so the reason I was chomping at the bed is because, look, this happened to me. I was a host on MSNBC for a short period of time, but I remember writing a script that was gonna go on a prompter, and I got a call from management saying, can you take out one of our advertisers from your script? You're gonna criticize them, please don't. So it's not a thing that doesn't happen, it definitely happens. And so there'll be advertisers like Archer Daniels Midland, defense contractors that don't sell anything to customers. So why are they paying millions of dollars in ads? Literally no one watching can buy them. That's to get the news station to shut up about all the subsidies they're getting, the wars they're starting, etc. In fact, David Urban is also a lobbyist for defense contractors. And also went on air to advocate for a war against Iran, where those same defense contractors would get incredibly rich. And by the way, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people would die, but David Urban would get richer, and no one watching CNN would have any idea he was paid to do propaganda to start a war.
Urban urged a military strike against Iran without any disclosure that he worked for defense contractors. He also repeatedly attacked environmental protections without disclosing he lobbied for fossil fuel related clients, including Norfolk Southern, which of course transports coal. Urban also touted a lobbying client's opposition to a tax bill without any disclosure that they paid him. So this is what's transpiring on outlets like CNN. And then they turn around and wonder why people don't trust their reporting.
And then one more thing that's really important so you know how this game is played. So what did Urban say there? You heard him say it, but I want you to focus. Remember, the real issue here is we didn't have safety regulations. That's why we had a disaster that happened, because they didn't do the inspections regularly enough. They didn't have enough staff. They, by the way, not necessarily related to this accident, but in other cases, they have very old brakes. They won't replace the brakes, and the government won't let them do, is not pushing them to do any of this stuff. So the real issue is, are we gonna have safe trains, or are we gonna have these giant chemical explosions, right? No, he switched it. He didn't defend the rail companies on that. Instead, he did something smarter. He immediately pivoted to Biden didn't show up. The issue isn't that the railroad companies screwed up to cut costs and create the giant ball of flame you saw in Ohio. not the issue. The issue is that Biden didn't do the right theatrics. If he had gone for a photo op earlier, well, wait a minute, the disaster would have happened anyway, right? Would any of the safety regulations be fixed? No. Now all of a sudden we're having a debate about whether Biden should have showed up or not, which is not at all material to actually fixing the problem. Mission accomplished. That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to distract the whole country. And now if you watch cable news, you will see all of them debating whether Biden should have showed up instead of debating the actual regulations.
Bingo. And while he's talented in doing that pivot and distracting people with an issue that's not material, he's not talented on debating or really providing anything of substance on CNN. And I do want to talk about that a little more in our members only bonus episode. We actually grabbed a few fun clips from when I debated him in 2019. And man, he was flailing so badly that he needed Chris Cuomo to jump in on his behalf, and when he didn't do it, he got salty. So don't miss it if you're a member, tyt.com/join to become a member. If you're watching us on YouTube, you could also click on that join button and become a member that way.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.